Hey guys, welcome to the Improvement Podcast, where the mission is to help young men develop their character, identity, and mindset in order to activate their potential and achieve their goals in life. And so for today's episode of Himprovement, we have on another special guest. His name is David Chambers. He is a podcaster and a dating and intimacy coach. Thank you for coming to the show, David.
Thank you for having me, Konami. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And so just to give the listeners a little bit of information about you and your background, could you kind of tell them your story and how you got into what you do now?
Yeah, man, it's quite a story. I'll give you the reasonably abridged version. Let's see what comes, see what comes up today.
All right.
Way back, probably, 12 or 13 years ago, like many a man in his 20s, I'm 37 now, so probably about 24, 25. I was a bit frustrated with my dating life.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't meeting the sort of women, the sort of quality of women I wanted to meet. At this point in my life, I'd traveled a bit. I'd been across Asia, seen parts of China and Russia and all sorts of things like that. And I'd come back and traveled through Europe a little bit, and I was establishing myself in my career, my former career in tech. And I wanted to meet women who wanted to experience life, not just experience the bar, the club, the handbag shop, the shoe shop, but to experience what life has, the culture, the food, the experiences, the things that, as a young Black man in London, I didn't know there was to experience, I wanted to experience those things, and not just because of the cost of them, because I'm hungry for experience, to live, to experience this beautiful thing we call life. And I was struggling to meet women like that. I was going to the bars and clubs like a lot of guys, and I wasn't meeting women who really made me think, yeah, I really enjoy speaking to you, how your mind works, where you want to go with your life, your ambition, what you're up to. So I picked up a book, like many men, called The Game, and then I read that. And a few kind of months later, through a coincidence of me going to a free workshop and doing a boot camp, I was teaching men how to meet women. And I could see a lot of the coaches around me were using scripts and like canned stories and lines. And that didn't really fit with my personality. I'm a very in the moment person. I like to be playful and fun. So I was just, having a good time in the bars and clubs, meeting people. And I was meeting women, I was meeting more women. And I was meeting, probably better women as well. And also like in the day streets and stuff like that, all that kind of jazz. And then I got really disillusioned with that world, because a lot of the guys I was meeting and coaching at the time, I could feel they didn't like women. They didn't have a deep love, a deep respect and reverence for women. They just wanted to take what they could from women. They wanted to take sex. They wanted to take, whatever they could, They just wanted them for the experience and then to throw them away. And that didn't really resonate with me, because that's, for me, that felt like disingenuous, and it wasn't loving and kind. It wasn't the way I wanted to treat a woman. So I stopped doing that. And I continued to live and work and travel and do various, self-development, self-improvement work. I did a lot of traveling, a lot of reading, and started to develop and understand my why I was the way I was. Why did I think the way that I thought? Why did I not do certain things? Why was I scared of certain things? And it came back a lot to, often, things that happened in my childhood, things that happened with my parents, and the stories I was telling myself. And then I went off again for a couple of years, traveled. I did some plant medicine. I broke up with a long-term girlfriend, and I realized that the biggest problem I was facing was that I was unable to truly express my emotions for the woman I was with. I was fun and I was engaging, I was interesting, and I had stories and all these things. But like at the deepest level, I couldn't express love in the way that I wanted to. That could, I felt scared. Commitment was always a problem for me. So I really delved into that sort of emotional work, and how we can men start to express our emotions and connect with our own emotions, and start to remove that fear around doing that. And then I started to see that, I created the podcast with a friend of mine who we used to run it together, now run it alone. And then we started to teach this, and I started to teach this, I just started to speak, and, people came and said, hey, can you coach me? I'm like, yeah, I can coach you. And then I started to coach people more. I got a coaching qualification, which I'm just finishing off at the moment. And I'm just, bringing in my experience, bringing in the things I've seen that work, bringing in some of the healing modalities, using, some tantric practices that I've been learning over the last few years. So just like bringing all those different things into really helping men evolve into the men they desire to be, more connected, more loving, being able to be more intimate.
I'm sure that a lot of men could actually relate to your story. for those guys that aren't getting those results that they want, and they start to look at different means to get that end, whether it be like YouTube or books or anything like that. And you can kind of come across this stuff like what you mentioned, what I'm assuming is like the pickup artist type of stuff, where you don't necessarily learn how to do the inner work to make yourself that desirable person, but you learn tricks to kind of make it seem like you're that person, to kind of act the part and not be the part. And that's kind of what I guess popped into my mind whenever you said that. And something that was interesting to me about how you relayed your experience talking to those men was that you mentioned that you said they didn't really have like a genuine love for women or like for that companionship, but it seemed like they were doing it to like get like an end, like whether it was sex or whatever else. Could you kind of dive into that a little bit, and maybe from your perspective explain what you think the root was behind that, to where you think they didn't give them that like respect?
Yeah, I think it's really multifaceted. I see it now in my coaching. Is that it comes through a few things. I'm just going to say them as they kind of come to me, I guess. One of them is often, if you have been rejected by women a lot at some point in your life, which every man has been, right? You've been rejected from women. Maybe you were in your teens and early 20s and women didn't want to date you. Maybe, you weren't the cool guy, or you didn't have the big muscles, or you weren't a footballer, or, you weren't, playing soccer, you weren't playing the sport, you weren't that sort of guy. And then you learn how to talk to women, and you can start to have sex, and they start getting interested in you. If there's part of you that's resentful of women, you still see women as this kind of collective being that all think and do the same. You want to often men want to take revenge. They want to be like, I'm still angry about that. They're still holding on to that anger that they built up from the resentment from being rejected. So there was some of the guys there. There's definitely some men who just had really bad relationship with their mothers. If I'm honest, that's a big one. Not having, a loving, caring relationship for your mother often can mean, because that's the first person you see as a woman. That's the first woman you encounter in your life. So if you have a deep hatred, or you have an absence, of a mother, then that can cause the same thing of like hating women and so forth. And then another one of it can be very cultural. Like if you've grown up being told that women are lesser than, which, to be honest, look, we live in patriarchal society, right? A deeply patriarchal society, which I often call what I call immature masculine, right? Because it's immature masculinity, right? There's what I like to call mature masculinity, which we don't have enough of in society. And there's immature masculinity, which is basically the patriarchy. It's all about controlling the feminine. It's about suppressing emotions. It's judgmental. It's critical, it's all about ownership and control. It's very immature things. Where when you move up to the mature masculine, it's like mature masculine is devoted to the feminine, will worship the feminine. It's humble, is generous, is interdependent, things like that. But so often, if a man comes from a culture where women are belittled and women are pushed down, or women are seen as lesser than, when he goes into his adulthood or starts to get into adulthood, he will then treat women in that way, because that's how he's been shown that women should be treated. And the truth is that, many cultures do that, if not all cultures to a certain more or lesser degree. And I've just seen these things, commonalities amongst men. And it's not always their fault. So I like to say that it's not their fault to a certain degree, right? Because they've just grown up and been told these messages, right? And they've decided these things. But it is our responsibility to sort this out. It's our responsibility to rectify this in ourselves, especially, and also in the world around us. So yeah, that's why I see that this love and respect, and it's definitely something that can be nurtured when you start to shift your relationship with women. And a lot of it is about, it comes back to yourself, and, how you treat yourself, how you nurture yourself. I like to always talk about kind of masculine, feminine dynamics, because we have these energies running inside us, these masculine, feminine energies. And an important thing for a lot of men is to nurture our own feminine, that part of us that has emotions, that part of us that needs to be held, a part of us is gentle, a part of us is spontaneous, and creative, is to nurture that in ourselves through various practices, because otherwise we become these ultra masculine, often quite toxic, often immature beings, because we've never really learned to nurture ourselves and mature into powerful men.
You mentioned two terms that kind of popped up. I guess that stuck in my mind anyway. And it was the mature masculinity and immature masculinity. And something that kind of made me think about is the talks about toxic masculinity and what that is and like what it isn't. And there's a popular, I guess you could say, argument that's made by a lot of people where they say that there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. It's masculinity in people that aren't masculine, don't have a good idea of what it is. And I feel like this is kind of similar to that, because in a way, I can see the point that's made, because a lot of stuff that I guess you would consider that would be considered toxic, or I guess, you know, the term that you gave, immature, it seems like it's from guys not really having a good idea of what masculinity is. And it seems like it's more like the showing type of stuff, the things that aren't really like something that's based on like having a strong internal masculine identity. It seems as though whenever people are using those immature tactics, or I guess those toxic tactics, it's more so to like prove their masculinity to other men or even to women. So I thought it was interesting that you brought that up. And then something that was really interesting that I heard you mention that kind of perked my ears is when you're talking about the dynamics between men and women and going from being like on the misogynistic end to where guys might not see women as the same as them, to where you mentioned one word that specifically stuck out to me, and it was like worship. And so when you say that, do you mean like to where women should be seen as like superior to men, or do you mean it just in like a respecting way? Or I guess if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, totally. When I say, worshiping the feminine, this is, worshiping what's feminine in the world, but also in us. Like the earth is feminine. It grows. It gives us life. It gives us, essence. It gives us food. It gives us water. It keeps us alive. And if you look, how do we treat the earth? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We rape, we pillage, we take, we dig, we destroy. How do we treat women in general across the world? In the same way we treat the earth, right? So there's that part, right? Now, when I say worship, now I don't believe that women are better than men and men are better than women. I think we're not the same, but we are equal completely. In the same way, if you are a mature feminine woman, you can worship the masculine because you see there's beauty, divinity, and love, and a greatness in it, right? I can look at my woman, my partner, and I can be like, she is my goddess. She's amazing. She's a queen. The things she can do, she looks at me in the same way. We are equals. We are equals. We are powerful, equal beings. And I think that what's lacking a lot is looking at women and being like, wow, they're amazing. I can, really bow down. Now, people hear the term bow down and they're like, oh, that means that I'm, on the floor and they're above me. And it's like, no, a king will bow down to his queen and a queen will bow down to her king. It doesn't make them better than each other, but they're able to look at each other and see the greatness in them and see that greatness and be like, wow, yes, I see you. But it really takes for us to be, if you don't have that kind of strong sense of who you are, a strong masculine core. When I say masculine, I want to just say that there's not one way that masculinity is, right? There's a wonderful book by a guy called J.J. Bodder. He's a British author. It's called Face Off. And in the book, he talks about masculinities and how masculinity has many different faces. Different cultures is different, Like I've been to countries like, say, India. Masculinity in India is a bit different to how it is in the UK and how it is in Italy. 20 years ago, men in Italy used to carry handbags, and we would have seen that in the UK and gone, oh, why are these men carrying handbags? That's a bit weird. Now everyone's carrying handbags, right?
Right.
And the point is that if my masculinity is mine, it isn't me being like power over, where it's like me to prove my masculinity is like, I have to hit you and then I'm the bigger man. I am a man and I can see you're a man, and I can see you're a powerful man and I am a powerful man, and we can stand and we can look at each other, and there's no competition, right? There's only competition if I think I'm lesser and then I need to prove that I'm not lesser, right?
Right.
And this is what we see a lot with men and masculinity is it's very much based upon, there's a lot of fear, right? When I say this immature masculine, the one thing you'll see in all those traits is there's a lot of fear, right?
Right.
If you need to be fiercely independent, mostly that's because you feel like you can't trust people, you can't trust the world. If you're really judgmental of people because you can't, love yourself and you can't love other people. You need to find fault and problem, and these are a lot of the traits that we see a lot around us in the men that we see, and women. These traits are also in women. Like I said, it's an energetic thing. It's not a men are masculine, women are feminine. We all have this both. As men, we have a feminine side to us, which is important to nurture. But there is just, I always say, when we talk about toxic masculinity, the thing that's missing when it comes to masculinity, when it's toxic masculinity, is a lack of love for self, and a lack of love for others. Like if we look at, say, rape culture, right? I feel like that's just popped into my head. This idea that, women are just tokens to be done with as we please, or, judging women based on what they're wearing. And if they're not wearing much clothes, then they are, use the words that people also use, is like they're whores, they're hoes, or, sluts or whatever, right? Now, what does that scream of to you? A lack of love for women, a lack of love for the people we're interacting with, right?
Well, to chime in on that, if I could just chime in really quick, guys, before we moved off of that, I would say another thing that kind of pops into my mind is that it also kind of screams a lack of accountability on the men's side, I would say, because if people can make the excuse of, oh, well, what were you wearing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that absolves the man of his responsibility to be able to control his urges and to be the type of man that can attract that type of attention as opposed to having to take it. I think that's something that should be mentioned as well. I just kind of wanted to throw that in too, just in case. But
no, because that's, lack of accountability is a lack of love for each other, right? As men, if you hear your brother saying these sorts of terms and derogatory terms about women, in twofold, you've got love for him, so you want to help him be better, right? So that's love. And you say, dude, that's not how to talk to women, treat women, and think about them. But equally, in those words you're saying there, that's also a love for women you have, because you have a respect and a reverence for them, right? And this is what is often lacking in toxic masculinity, right? Is love. It's just, it's a wider sense of love, but that's what's really lacking, is love. What's behind a lot of toxic masculinity is fear. Actually, it's behind nearly all of it is fear. And I think that's the thing that we are not always facing in ourselves, which is a very important part of our own development, right? Is facing our fears and moving through them.
So I guess it pretty much simplifies to the immature masculinity, or I guess the quote unquote toxic masculinity, is really just from people not being masculine enough to be sure of themselves and fearing that their masculinity is at risk. You kind of sum it up to that, right? Would you agree?
You can. And I say it's just that there's a lack of love in their actions, lack of love in their life and in themselves and for the people in the world. And what I would say, and that's why I kind of group it into kind of mature and immature, because it's just like these are immature behaviors. These are fear-based, immature behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are being exhibited. And if you just look around the world and you start seeing how our leaders are acting, or you see men who act like this, who maybe you go into a gym and everyone is like posturing and trying to look good, because what's behind their actions? Their fear is that they're not enough. Their fear is that they're not good. Their fear is that they don't look good. So why? They do actions to make it look like they are, or they had to do actions to hold on to what they have because they fear they may lose it.
Okay. And something that I think would also help me too with understanding your point of view is if you could kind of tie in the love portion too. And so you mentioned how also part of it is that lack of love. And so you talked about it could be within themselves. And I can definitely see that where somebody might not be accepting of themselves. But could you also kind of elaborate on how that love affects other people? I guess that lack of love for others goes into that same thing you were talking about.
Yeah. So if we look at something like greed, maybe the way in which let's tie this back to maybe dating, for instance, right? So say, for instance, we're acting from a place of this immatureness, right? We're dating somebody and they want to do stuff, right? They want to talk to friends and stuff like that. And then we start going, well, you can't talk to any other men. I don't want you to talk to other men, for instance, right? Become controlling, right? You shouldn't talk to other men. That's disrespectful to me. What's inside that? That's not enough love for yourself and care for yourself, right? You're not having enough love for this person. Also, you're lacking trust, right? And you're seeing yourself as separate. You're seeing that there's a lot of things to be afraid of, right? Maybe the thought is if she has male friends, then, you won't be good enough and she will leave you for it, right? And it's like when we can't connect to our own internal self-love that's there, right? The love inside us to let us know that we are not lacking, right? We are not empty, right? We have plenty, right? Is where this comes in. And also, if you look at it from a point of view also of, say, how, back to, we're talking about rape culture, for instance, is like, if you are going to talk of a woman or women in such a way, in such a derogatory way, is that showing that you have love for other people, for women? You might have sisters, aunties, and mothers. These are, if you're going to talk about women a certain way, are you showing that you have a love for women as a kind of general term, or love for the woman that you're talking for, right? And you can love someone you don't know. I have love for you as a man, as a human being on this earth who is trying to do his best, enjoy his life. Like I see that, and I'm like, I have love for that, right? So it's not a case, it's like, oh, romantic love, I don't know her, but it's like you can have that sort of love for someone. But on the flip side, when you don't have that, you can treat someone as an object, right? You forget that they have thoughts and feelings and a life and a future and all those things. So it's like, that's where I really see the lack of love coming in.
Okay. And I understand that. And one thing that I like to kind of add to the discussion is that everything that you say, it makes sense. But I think one thing that could be off-putting for a lot of people that are trying to receive the message is maybe the way it's packaged, more so like with the name. And so when you initially said rape culture, immediately I was thinking, oh, wait, what are we talking about? And then when you kind of explained it, what we talked about made sense. But I would say, at least from the way I personally interpreted it, it just seemed like calling it rape culture was kind of misleading, because it seems like more so what the problem is maybe not just, people just seeing someone as an object and just saying, I'm going to go rape that person. But it seems as though it's more so of like just pretty much what you said, of not seeing them as an equal, or maybe like somewhat like a misogynistic type of thing. I wouldn't say like, or at least if I package it, I wouldn't say rape, because the thing is, the majority of the sex that these guys are having is most likely consensual. And so that's the thing, even though they might be looking at these women as objects, I would imagine that the majority of them are having consensual sex with these women that they think are objects. And so that's just kind of the thoughts that I had on it.
No, I definitely agree with you. Definitely agree. I can definitely see that it's just the term that come to me, because I think inside of the rape culture, at the core of it is this thinking that women are lesser than, there's an ownership, but I definitely agree. Like, I know, most men are having very consensual sex, but they're still treating women as objects. They're still looking at women as lesser than, just as you said. And actually, that actually handicaps their ability to deeply connect and find the sort of relationship that, at a very deep level internally, what they really want is to be seen and to connect. Because if you don't see someone as equal to you, then your ability to open up, be you, and connect with them is always going to be tricky.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like, as far as people that actually are raping people, I'm sure they probably do see them as an object in a way, because it's hard for me to imagine if somebody could see somebody as a person, with goals, their own personality, their own quirks and things like that, and be able to live with themselves after doing something like that. So I guess inherently that person would have to kind of view women as objects to be able to, I guess, bring themselves to do something like that. So I can definitely see what you're saying with that. And then the other point that you made about seeing women as equal to be able to make those connections and find partners, I definitely agree, because the thing about it is that if you don't have that extra element of it, I guess you could say, to where you can see them as your equal, to where you can have like a connection outside of sex, it really kind of gets to a point to where you kind of wonder, really, what is the point in even having relationships? You could say, if, women are just going to be bodies, then, no point ever getting married, no point ever having girlfriends, anything. And that kind of gets into, like, you could say, like the red pill ideology, at least like on the dating side. I'm sure that you've heard about this type of stuff with you being a dating coach, but while they do make some good points, I would say some stuff is logical. I think that's one of the main things that I think leads a lot of people astray. It just seems very cynical to me how a lot of the content, and not all of the people, and it might not even be what Red Pill was intended to be, but I've seen a lot of content creators create content to where they kind of push things in a way of saying that, like, women don't have free will in these different areas, and like stuff is in their nature, and that a woman can't decide, even if that is her nature, to go against it, just like how a man can still exercise his autonomy to go against his nature. It kind of seems like it's presented in that way, where they don't have that ability, but a man does. Like people could say it's in our nature to want to have sex with multiple partners, but we can exercise the discretion to not do that. We have the autonomy to be able to go against what our urges, what our, I guess, quote unquote, nature might be. But it seems like a lot of that content is presented in a way to where they don't give women that same autonomy. And it ends up being somewhat misogynistic, because it's like, hey, if women can't go against this nature that you say that they have, if all of them are going to do it, then, where do we go from there?
No, that's a wonderful point. Really great point. Because ultimately, when people talk about nature and go, oh, this is our nature is not to live in buildings. Our nature is not to create technology, right? Because our nature was living in the bush, in trees, in very small communes. So we're going up against our nature every day, but that's called evolution. And as you say, like, when you get into, I've been into meditation for probably the last 6 or 7 years, you start to realize a big part of maturing and evolving, right, is to see our desires and urges and to learn to just see them and not always have to give in to them, right? It's like babies they have an urge, they want some food, they want the food, they cry for the food, they get the food, right? But as we mature and get older, we realize like, oh, I have an urge to eat all the chocolate that I can find. And we go, actually, I'm going to go against that urge because I know that's not good for me. Why? Because we are conscious beings. And I think a lot of the like you said, it's very cynical about women. It just it's reductive. It simplifies everything. It just says, oh, and like I've had a few clients come to me, have gone through red pill, and they're like, I want to stop thinking like this because I can see that this isn't helpful for me. I can see that this isn't how things are, and they want to be more connected. They want to actually meet women. They want to connect with them instead of just thinking that all women just want men with money and big muscles and that are good looking. Because ultimately they've started to see that it's just untrue, right? I have my idea is this, right? I got this from one of my mentors. Your focus creates your reality. If as a man, you think all women just want money, muscles, status, and nice shiny things, look at yourself. Are those the things that you think are important? Are those the things that you think life is about? Because if that's where you put your focus and that's where you put all your attention, then that's what you're going to keep seeing. That's what you're going to keep attracting to you. Like in my life, especially in the last 5-10 years, I'm meeting women who are like, I don't care what a man earns. I want a man who can feel what he's feeling, who is connected to a family, who's living with purpose, who can love deeply, who can take me to experiences and feelings that I can't take myself. I want to be with a man who loves himself, who cares about the world and what's there. And these are pretty much all the women I meet now. Like, I've got a partner now, but through the work that I do, I meet lots of women like this constantly, right? Why? Because that's what I see as being in my reality, right? When someone, I don't see people like, oh my God, I just want a man who can buy me a Ferrari and blah, blah, blah. I don't see that because that's not where I put my focus. That's not what my energy goes towards as a person. So if you're a man and you're looking at his red pill stuff and you're like, this is the truth, there's some bitterness, there's some anger there that needs to be resolved and let go of, and start to go, how can I evolve myself beyond this very level one, very immature looking at life? Like life's just about, it's a zero-sum game, Start moving into the deeper parts of life, like really getting into people, who they are, not just what you see, right? And I think that's the key. And then, getting up into a more spiritual way of seeing life as this interconnected tapestry that we live in.
So it's interesting how whenever your values shifted to a certain area and you start prioritizing certain things, how you start to find women that prioritize those things as well, right?
Yeah.
So let's say if somebody didn't want to be around women that were materialistic and only wanted guys with the big muscles and the cars and all that. Let's say a guy had his focus on his character development, being the best person he can be, his morals and all that. It's likely that he'll probably find somebody or start attracting women that have similar morals. That's what you would say?
Yeah. So you have to start putting your focus, like you have to put your attention and focus on that. Like, okay, I want to I want someone who is maybe into, self-improvement and self-development, that reads and stuff like that. So when you put your focus on it, you're going to start reading. You might start going to certain events, and you might hanging out at certain bookshops. You might start going to different, things in the evening. You might stop going to the bar because you might have read and realized, like, man, going to the bar and drinking all the time, that's not good for my liver. That's not good for my body. That's not good for my consciousness.
Right.
I don't want to do that anymore. So where am I going to go in the evening? Okay, maybe I want to try things like meditation, or I might go to breath work, or I might go to a meditation retreat instead of going on holiday. I might go to yoga, and you start to find yourself in these places. But the key here is you're not just going there to go there. You have to be focused on these things, like in your being, in your life, across different areas, because then you will be drawn to the sort of person, the sort of people that you want to resonate with. And it could take a bit of time. It could take, a year, a couple of years. It won't just happen overnight. Like, oh, I'm going to be, really connected. I want to do these things. And you do it for 1 week and go, well, it hasn't worked. I haven't met anybody. It takes time because it has to seep into your mind. It has to be part of who you are. So it's like, where is your focus? Where are you putting your attention? Because the problem is as human beings, it's a bit like one of my old clients was a ski instructor.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say to me, David, when I teach people to ski, I tell them, look where you want to go. Yeah. Look where you want to go. Don't look at the things you want to avoid. And I remember him telling me this, and I was like, yeah. He's like, because when you look at the things you want to avoid, right, you crash into them. You crash headlong into them, right? Now look at where you want to go. Where do you want to go? Where? And that is where, and that is where you will be heading to, right? I'm not saying completely ignore the things you don't want, acknowledge them, okay. I don't want someone who's, superficial or whatever. Cool, but where do I want to go? And put your energy into that and your focus into that, not into avoiding the thing you don't want. And there's a subtle difference there, right? Like, don't put your energy into avoiding the thing you don't want. Put your energy into the thing you truly, deeply desire and would really love to have.
So you get a lot more value from knowing what you want and guiding yourself in that direction, as opposed to looking at all the negative around you and saying what you don't want. Having that, I guess, that blueprint for what it is that you're looking for in a woman or what you want out of life, and just solely focusing on that and cutting out the negative is really going to be the thing that gives you those results that you're looking for. Am I gathering what you're saying? Sorry about that, guys. Got to take a quick break. But so we're on that same topic, but to kind of give you guys an idea of like what I was talking about. When you look at a lot of the like the red pill content and stuff, it gives you a really good idea of what you don't want, the type of women that you should avoid. But one thing I'll say that's lacking in a lot of the content is that it doesn't actually give you like the blueprint or like a direction for how to find what you do want. A lot of the times the content is really good at telling you, oh, what you need to do to be able to like have sex with a lot of women. But as far as like doing what you need to do and being in the places that you need to be to actually attract the women that you do want, I feel like the content is really lacking in that area. And so that, I guess that's kind of the basis I was going along when I was mentioning that to you, but it was really just reiterating what you were saying.
But yeah, exactly. It tells you what the problem is, or the perceived problem is. And also the problem is also your fear. And often it's the thing that men perceive that they're lacking in, right? Mm-hmm. It's like this red pill stuff and I haven't got that deep into it. A lot of it comes from my knowledge, comes from my clients and some of the events have happened. It's like, all women just want men who are good looking, rich, and have status, right? Or, big muscles and all that kind of thing. And you don't have that, do you? It's like, you don't have those things. Yes. So you're fucked. Sorry to use that language, but it's just like, you can't do anything, right? But they don't say to you, actually, there are some women like that, right? There are some, I'm not going to lie, because you got to bear in mind that, when we talk about a lot of things, it's like women have the short straw because of the patriarchy system that we have in. So women are thinking about the resources and marrying well and blah, blah, blah. But there are also loads of women, right? And this is, again, who want to actually be connected, to meet a loving, caring man who they can journey through life with, right? But does the red pill tell you how to meet one of those sorts of women? No, because it's not interested in helping you do that. Because you wouldn't need that content anymore, right?
Right.
And ultimately, my experience of finding that sort of loving union, I call it a union, because when two souls come together, two people come together and they are creating beauty in their lives, there's love between them, they maybe have a family, you've seen these couples, you may even know some, right? And you look at them, you're like, wow, they just love each other so much, and your heart, and I'll say this, your heart looks at them and goes, I would love something like that. Maybe you don't always admit it to yourself, right? Because of fear that you can never have that, right? But that's what you want. That the red pill content doesn't tell you that, that they tell you that's not possible, right? Because women are X, Y, and Z. But you've also seen things that are contrary to that. You've seen people, right? You've seen relationships that go against that, because the content ultimately is only partially true. Like the red pill content is partially true. So the thing is what's lacking is like, how can men emotionally mature, right? How could we get past our trauma and our pain that we've experienced in our lives that's been passed on to us from our parents, right? How can we connect deeply with ourselves, create self-acceptance, self-love, right? Self-respect for ourselves as well. And then how can we then connect to the people we meet, right? And all these things are not easy. Like, it's not, I say it just like that, but it can take years to do. It's taken me years, and it's been not a lonely road because I've had a few friends join me on it, but it hasn't been easy because I didn't have a guide. I was just fumbling my way through and learning and doing things. So it's all possible, but the red pill content doesn't want to tell you that, right? Because then you wouldn't need it. You wouldn't go to the forums and, hang around there and buy the books and go to the talks, because all I see in red pill is pain. I see men who are in pain, men who want a solution, men who have been offered and told a theory to why they're in pain. And it can perpetuate their pain and their anger, to be honest.
Right. And I also think part of it is men wanting attention from the wrong types of women. It's one thing I'll say is that, it's probably rare that a lot of these guys are going to meet women at yoga retreats or meditation retreats or anything like that. Most of the time, it's probably going to be at bars and clubs. And, just based on where you're fishing, you're going to catch certain types of fish, certain types of people. I'm not going to generalize all people, but certain types of people are more prone to be in certain areas, doing certain things, having different hobbies. And that's really just the fact of the matter. And to kind of go back to like what you mentioned about the ideology and with it like being partially true, I think one thing that everybody should keep in mind is that you should never 100% be invested into any type of ideology, like man-made ideology, because the thing about it is that there's going to be some sort of flaw within it. If it's man-made, of course, you're not going to find something perfect. You can find things from different ideologies that, of course, are going to make sense. If none of it made sense, it wouldn't exist. But you should never just be that gung-ho on something to where you're just fully devoted and you think nothing can deviate from these sets of rules that are in that ideology that you subscribe to. So I think that's definitely something important to bring up too. And another question that I wanted to ask you, I know I'm kind of throwing out a lot of stuff right now, but another question I wanted to ask you is, what was the process like for you where you had to sit down, and I guess since that content isn't really normally out there, but how did you sit down and figure out what it was exactly that you wanted from a partner? And the reason why I asked that is because I feel like a lot of guys that go into dating and everything and looking for girlfriends, future wives, you have like your basics, but I feel like not a lot of guys really know themselves well enough to know what it is exactly that they would require from a partner. And how did you figure that out?
Yeah, God, for me, it was a lot of process of trial and error. Being in relationships, experiencing the pain of a lot of conflict in relationships, experience a lot of my own emotional turmoil in relationships, and then having to learn that, these are not the traits that I'm looking for in a woman, right? Like a lot of guys, if you say to them, what do you want in a woman? They'll tell you what they want her to look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I always say to guys is, so do you think a happy relationship is created by what two people look like? And they go, they say attraction's important. I said, yeah, it is important, but what someone looks like isn't about attraction. We think it's just about attraction, right? What someone looks like. But attraction is about who someone is as well. There's a large part of that. Like, I think research has been done. It's like over 70% of attraction is who someone is, their personality. So, okay, cool. You want her to look like X, Y, and Z. Cool. Who do you want her to be? You know, what do you want her to stand for? And I think the thing is, when you start asking these questions, if you don't have an answer, it's because you don't know about those things for you. You know, what's valuable to you in life? Is family valuable to you? Is adventure valuable to you? Is connection? You know, there's a lot of values out there. But the question, you know, and I did this with numerous coaches over the years, is you go, what do I put my time into in life? What do I put my time into? You know, you can say, you know, like with some of my coaching clients, I'm like, what did you do this week? And they reel off the things. And they start going, oh yeah, I met with some friends. And I'm like, okay, cool. What did you talk about with those friends? And they're like, oh, we talked about old times. And I'm like, okay. So are those friends people you really like? Or are they people you hang out with because you've known them for a long time? And they're like, oh, well, I guess, you know, we don't talk about much. I've known it for a long time. I was like, so is that like a level of comfortability? Okay, cool. So comfortability is important to you. And you start pulling out the values based on what you're doing, right? That's the first start. So, you know, maybe you like to go rafting. It's just popped into my head. So you like adventure, or maybe part of your rafting is going with a group of friends or meeting new people. So then that's maybe connection and, you know, kinship and stuff like that. Maybe brotherhood, even if it's a group of men. And then we start to, I say, what values do you want to have? What values do you want to have in your life? And someone might go, oh, I want to have ambition. I want to have focus. I want to be abundant. You know, I want to be someone that holds people accountable and stuff like that. And go, okay, where do they show up in your life? Are those values in your life? And if they're not in your life, then okay, what do you need to do to start bringing those into your life? Because once we start looking at what our own values are, then we have a bit of a clearer idea what we want in someone else, right?
You can see it too. Whenever it's something that's more prevalent in how you live your life, you can definitely see, like, just to give you an example, let's say empathy is something that's important to you and something that you want in a partner, due to the fact that that's something that is on your radar, due to the fact that it's one of your core values. You're going to automatically see whenever you come across people that don't exercise empathy. And it kind of helps you to be able to filter through those women that you might come across. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly that. And that's a really, really well put. So it's like, you know, empathy is, I did some research for about 15, 25 guys a couple of years ago, guys in my community. And kindness, compassion, and empathy were the three things that men wanted the most, the men that I spoke to, right? So empathy, you know, how can you spot someone who's empathetic? Well, maybe if you go on a date with someone and you go to a restaurant and they're rude to all the staff, then there's a lack of empathy, right? There's a lack of compassion there as well, and a lack of kindness, all wrapped up into one. But if you didn't know that was your value, you might just go, hey, yeah, she did that, but, you know, I'm not too fussed about that. Oh, you know, fair enough. That's just how she is, you know? Whereas if you know that's a value for you, you'll be like, okay, that's a red flag for me, you know, because that's a real big value of mine. You know, for me, that's also for me. It's like, you know, compassion, empathy, and then even, you know, I don't know how to describe it. The word's not coming to me, but it's just like a thirst for understanding, you know, wanting to know people is also, you know, for me, a curiosity. Curiosity is a big value for me. I want to know who people are. So if I'm dating someone and they take no interest, they walk into maybe a restaurant they've never been to and take no interest in the place, or they're eating food from a culture that they've never been to, but they have no interest. They're not curious about the food, what's in it, or who cooked it, or where it's from, or what the country's like. For me, that's like, okay, cool, you're not curious about the world, you're not curious about life, and that's deeply important to me. Now, where a lot of men are is that they're kind of in this stage where they're just like, I just want someone who's hot and is no drama, for instance, right? It's a thing that come up a lot, no drama. Now, I understand that, right? No drama. But part of that wrapped up in that phrase of no drama is that as if you are completely independent of drama in your life. You know, like if you keep meeting people who have drama in their life, I guarantee you, either you like the drama because it makes you feel alive in some way, right? Or you have drama in your life, right? Like drama's never been really something that's come to me in my life, because equally I can deal with the drama occurs when we can't just have straight conversation and we can't just say how we feel, and that there's blow ups and stuff like that. That's when drama kind of happens, right? So it's important to just be able to learn to be with our emotions and talk in that way, like mature adults.
Yeah, it all makes sense. And from what it sounds like to me, it seems as though one of the main things that's leading to a lot of guys maybe not getting those results that they want when it comes to dating is just because their identity isn't strong enough to get the results that they're looking for. You know, they might say that something like this is important to them, but they might not exhibit that in their own life, or they just might not have sat down and done the inner work to even really develop a strong identity outside of maybe their muscles or the money that they make or something like that. Hence why they're having those problems. Would you agree?
Yeah. Because, you know, back to masculinity tells us that our power is in our production, how much money you make, you know, what you can do and blah, 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 not who you are. So we leave out the inner work. We leave out learning about ourselves, developing ourselves and caring about, like, why do I get angry when someone looks at me a certain way? We just say, oh, that's how it is. But actually that doesn't have to be that way. That's the work, you know, why do I struggle to, you know, show love, or why do I struggle to say what I need or what I really want, you know, or ask for my needs to be met, things like that. It's like doing that inner work allows us to know ourselves better, so that when we are out dating and relating, we can connect better, but we can also understand people and where they're at and have compassion, because, you know, you start to realize that everyone's on this journey of life, and we were raised by parents who didn't really know what they were doing, and we're also trying to muddle our way through not knowing what we're doing. And we won't be so quick to judge people, and we'll be softer with people, we'll be more open. And then, you know, that really is something that I see that has to come in.
Yeah, that's great. And I think those are all really good points. And one thing I will say about it, though, is that a lot of the stuff that we talked about in this episode, those are the type of issues you could say come up once you're getting the attraction and all that, once you're somewhat getting the results, because I mean, you can't really be unsatisfied with the type of women that like are in your life if you're not getting any at all. And so the next question I would ask, and to kind of wrap it up too, since we're getting low on time now, is for those guys that are looking to try and make some sort of change so where they can get that attention that they want to be able to eventually start to have these questions and get into these sorts of discussions and issues. What would you say to them as far as like building that confidence, or you could say that charisma, or anything else to get their foot in the door?
Yeah, you know, the answer, and it is the answer I work on, you know, I have clients that come to me the same thing, you know, I can't meet women, I don't know what to do, women don't pay any attention to me, and so forth. And I'd say that there's some inner stuff that I always recommend, because that's the stuff that goes a long way, right? That's the stuff that lasts. The first thing I say is start to create a life that you enjoy. Start to create a life you enjoy. Start being around people you enjoy. Start doing stuff you enjoy. Start being an adventurer of your own life and going, okay, what am I interested in? What do I enjoy? And start, you know, being interested and finding that out, right? Try stuff, try loads of stuff, then stop doing stuff, you know, face some of your fears. You know, that's the deep inner work, because that will set you on a journey through life to creating a life you enjoy. And when you're enjoying life and you're happy with the life you have, or you are fleetingly happy or in and out happy and content with your life, your whole personality will evolve into meeting people will be more effortless. And I'd say the other thing I say for some men is, you know, grooming is really important. Start to groom yourself. And this isn't about, you know, being good looking. This is something that every man should do more of, is like, you are the way you are. So it's like, okay, are you healthy? Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you exercising your body? Are you putting good food into your body? Have you got vitality? Are you wearing clothes that fit you? You know, where are you wearing clothes that actually fit you well? You know, are you grooming your face? You're looking after your skin. You know, this is all to do with the food, the air quality, the environments you find yourself in. And then some of it's also emotional. Is like, and this is maybe some more of the kind of inner work, is like, are you putting yourselves in environments that make you feel good? You know, are you facing fear? Are you creating challenge in your life? So you're pushing yourself and you're growing and evolving. Like, these are the kind of areas that, you know, I usually start with when a guy's like, oh, you know, I don't meet any women. And then also one of the big parts is, are you challenging your thought processes? Are you challenging these limiting beliefs that you have and starting to go, okay, I have a belief that no women want to talk to me. Cool. What would it be like if for one day I tried on the belief that, yes, women do want to talk to me? How would I walk through the world? You know, how would I operate and act in the world, and act like that for an hour, a day, of some minutes, and just try that feeling on and being that feeling and react to the world in that feeling? Because once we start trying on new beliefs, we can start to experience them. Because if we stick on our old beliefs, our limiting beliefs, we just, again, it's the focus. We keep seeing what we have experienced.
I like how you tied that back to the previous point you made, where if you stay in that negative thought process of, oh, I have no luck with women or something like that, that's going to keep manifesting itself, where you're going to at least just always focus on the negativity that happens, all the rejections. But when you try and make that flip, like you were saying, to where you start to focus on the positive and you look at yourself from a, I guess, perspective of someone that can, have opportunities, then things kind of change. That's what you're saying. I guess that's probably going to be the biggest thing then, that, and then building that life that you say that they deserve. I mean, well, not deserve, but want to live.
Exactly that. It's, it's where we put our energies, when I put our focus is so important.
All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. And so would you like to share any information with the audience, like to let them know where to find you and your content?
Yeah. I could do most of my work through Instagram. Is probably the best place to find me. My handle is @theauthenticman_. The next best place probably to get me is probably my website. I've got a bunch of blogs on there. I should be probably doing some more in the near future. I have some events as well that I run reasonably regularly around, dating, intimacy, relationships, and so forth. So you can find me there, and that's www.theauthenticman.net.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming on to the show, David. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, brother. Thank you for having me, man.
All right. My pleasure. Take care.